Welcome to day 4 of our 90 days data analytics training. I'm super excited to have you back. Today we are going to be discussing data types. We have data in terms of numbers, in terms of text. So we have to discuss these things and get familiar with the terms we call them in the data world. So what are data types? Data types define the nature or kind of data we work with. Understanding the data type is essential for proper analysis and data handling. And it also helps us to choose the right charts, the right formula, the right tools for our analysis. Right. So the first data type that we are talking about in this tutorial is categorical data type. Categorical data type represents labels, groups, or categories, right? It is mostly in form of text. When I say text, I mean alphabets like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So it's mostly in form of text. It's not always in form of numbers. By numbers, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it is often used to classify or segment data. For example, we can have gender. We have male gender and female gender. So we have the male category, female category. Because we have different categories, then the data type for this kind of data would be categorical data. All right. Another example will be country. We can have US, UK, Nigeria, all right? So US will be under the first category, UK second category, Nigeria third category. So we just categorize them like that. So these are examples of categorical data. I hope we understand that. Okay, so we have different types of categorical data. For this tutorial, we'll talk about the two major ones. We have the nominal data and the ordinal data, right? When we are talking about the nominal data, there is no specific order or ranking to this categorical data. An example is like colors. When we have different colors, we have like red, blue, green. There's no particular order. You cannot say blue has to come first before red or green has to come first before blue. There's no particular orders. If we have cities, we can basically just arrange them in no specific order. So these are what we call nominal data. Talking about ordinal data, just like it sounds, ordinal, it is in a logical order, right? It is categories with a logical order. So for example, let's say we want to take education, for example, the educational level where we have high level, bachelor's, master's, PhD. Like we can have bachelor's as the least, then followed by master's, then followed by PhD. So these are categorical data under the ordinal type. All right. Another data type that we'll talk about in this lecture is numerical data, right? Numerical data represents measurable quantities, something we can measure, all right? It can either be counted or be measured. We can use it for mathematical operations as well. So for numerical data, we also split it into two categories. We have the whole number and we have what we call the float or decimal. So for the whole number is like 1, 2, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000. Those are whole numbers. Once it has a decimal point, it becomes float. All right. So if I have 2.9999, that's float because it has a decimal point already. So that is just an example of numerical data. So some other examples are like age, 21, 20. Those are numerical data, which falls under the whole number category because it is whole number. We have salary, we have height. Height could be in form of float because we could have 5.7, we could have height having decimal points. All right. So these are examples of numerical data. Now let's talk about the types of numerical data that we have. We have discrete and continuous data. Discrete data are countable numbers, something that you can count, like whole numbers, the number of children, the number of items we sold. Those are examples of discrete data. Continuous data are measurable, but we cannot count it. All right, but we can measure it. Okay, so it can take any value within a range. So for example, we can say 0 to 10. You understand? Those are not countable, but they have a range. You understand? So an example of that is weight, height, temperature. We can measure it, but we cannot count it. I hope you understand these types of numerical data that we just discussed. Another data type that we have is the Boolean data type. So what do we mean by Boolean data type? Boolean represents binary outcomes. We only have two possible values as our result. Is either we have true or we have false, we have yes or we have no. So these are examples of Boolean data type, and it is common in like logical conditions or like flags. Example, if I ask you, are you a student? You tell me either yes or no. So if you have a column where you have yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, then the data type for that column would be a Boolean data type, all right? And if I asked you that, did you pass the test? You can either say true or false, or you can either say yes or no. So these are Boolean data types, all right? So let's talk about string or textual data. Textual is just like alphabet, right? Any data that has alphabet is just like, we call it string in this context. So during the course of the class, if I use string often, you already know that I'm talking about textual data. So they are data represented in textual formats, and it cannot be used for calculation. Unlike numbers, we can use numbers for calculation, but textual data, we cannot add D plus A or T plus B. No, we can't do that. So they cannot be used for calculation. We can use them for names, we can use them to describe something, we can use them for comment, we can even use them in terms of category, remember. So examples is like your name, maybe a product description and all of that. Once it's just textual or alphabetic, then it is called a string data type. All right, so another data type we'll talk about today is the date and time data. All right, so it's just like, what is today's date? I'm recording the video on okay, so today is April 13th, 2025, right? So we can have date or birth as example too. So anything that has to do with date, time, that is date time data type, all right? So we can have other time, we can have timestamp. Timestamp mostly contains date and time together. Why does data types matter? It prevents analysis error, right? Because sometimes we have to format a particular column to the data type that it is supposed to be able to work with it. All of these things, you understand it better when we go in depth into the practical class, but I want you to have the basic knowledge. So during the practical class, if I'm saying, so this is a string data type, you're not wondering that, what is this girl saying? Okay, so now you already know what I'm talking about. So it also influences how tools process and visualize data, right? It is also essential for data cleaning and transformation. When we start data cleaning, you are going to understand this better, because part of data cleaning is checking for the data types, if it is correctly formatted, if we have the correct data formats, all right? All right, so let me quickly run you through this example on the data types we talked about. So we have this first column. So we have column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. Don't worry about that. We are going to explain it in details when we start working with spreadsheets. So for this first column, we have the names of people. We have Tosin, Charles, and Kunle. So, and we have their ages also. For example, Tosin is 16, Charles is 22, Kunle is 34. We have their gender and the amount they purchased from us. All right. So for this first column now, so we are going to be checking the data type by columns. So we have the names of people: Tosin, Charles, Kunle. Tosin, Charles, Kunle are textual data, which means that the data type for this particular column will be string, right? So this will be string data type. And we have the second column. This particular column contains the ages like 16, 22, 34. So you don't really have to care about this first column header. This one is just labeling what we are having inside, right? So we are focusing on the values inside it. So you don't focus on this one. So these are numbers, right? And we can call this numerical data type. Under this is whole number under numerical data type, okay? And then we have the gender column, female, male, which is the categorical data type, right? Because we have two categories, the female category and the male category. And we have the amount. The amount is also a numerical data type, which falls under the floats that we talked about with decimal points. All right, I just quickly wanted to run you through that. So that is all for today. We have more data types, but these are the major ones that we'll be working with for the purpose of this class. Check the link in the description to download a sample data set where you're going to identify the data type for each of the columns. Look at the sample data set in the description. Try to identify which columns are categorical, string, and which are numerical? Let me know your answers in the comments. You can say column 1 equals to this data type, column 2 equals to this data type, and like that. So let's get ready for day 5, where we're going to talk about the basic statistics every data analyst needs to know. This theoretical knowledge, you're gonna be glad you learnt it first as we progress with this class. All right. So if you want to join our paid community, the live classes, mentorship program, you can check the link in the description to join the paid community as well. See you tomorrow and bye.